Welcome to the Navseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 84 of the Navseam podcast. My name is Dr. Jeff Winkle. I'm here in Vomitorium East with my good friend and co-host, Dr. David Noe. How you feeling today, Dave?
I'm doing pretty well, Jeff. Thanks. It's late May here in Michigan. We finally got past the smarch.
Yes, finally.
And the ape thrill weather. And now we're into May. And these are some of the most beautiful times in Michigan.
I agree. And I like the view we have here at the Vomitorium East. Out on the lake here, we can see the swans. We can hear the birds. It's great.
It's gorgeous. We have, bright sunny days, blue skies, low humidity. It's perfect, really.
It's almost a shame to be inside doing a podcast.
You think so?
Well, not with the topic we got today. No.
We have Virgil, don't we?
We have Virgil.
And how are you?
It's always worth doing Virgil.
Yes. And how are you feeling, Jeff?
I'm feeling great. I'm more of a morning guy than you are here.
Yes.
We're recording it's a morning session today.
Correct.
Right. And you're more kind of a late night guy.
I am kind of the night owl.
Yeah.
I get a second wind, in the early evening, and then I like to work pretty late.
Yeah. Have you always been like that? Is it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I became kind of a morning guy, kind of late in life, and now I have trouble staying up past 10 o'clock. So.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah. So
you turn the last page of your AARP magazine and then turn in.
Exactly. Musing on the senior discount I received that day.
That's right.
Yes.
And exactly. You say it's been 6 hours since supper.
Exactly right. Yep. So we're talking Virgil today. I'm very excited. This is our second full-length episode on Virgil. We're going to tackle the second half of Book 1.
Correct.
So much here to talk about. Such a rich epic, and it's been a while since I've read it through myself. And just reading through Book 1 again last night, I was struck by many things that reminded me why I love Virgil.
Yeah.
Yep. So we don't have a shout out today.
We do not. No. And that's too bad. I guess the people out there who listen to our musings and ravings, they don't really want to be recognized for the great sacrifice they're making.
That's right. Exactly. So let's continue to shame them,
I guess,
and into getting in touch with us. Right. And
what I found in life is what really motivates people is shame.
Shame.
That crushing feeling of inadequacy.
Exactly right.
It really motivates them.
That's right. It works with my children.
Yes.
All the time. Right. So we're gonna have to jump right to the quote, I'm afraid.
Okay, Jeff, this week's opening quote is from a book called The Idea of Epic.
Okay.
This is written by a man named J.B. Hainsworth. It's published by the University of California Press, October 1989.
All right.
Now, this is a work that we have quoted a few times when we were going through the Iliad and Odyssey, when we were trying to give a little bit of the background for the concept of epic writ large. Mm-hmm. But now we're going to get specific on the topic of Virgil. So this is page 79. And he says, the national epic would depict the eclipse of such vices, these Greek vices, by solid Roman virtues. Even as Virgil marshaled his thoughts, the historian Livy was rewriting the history of Rome as a series of tableaux exemplifying the qualities that had made the city great. First, there was pietas, piety, that respect for religion and the actions and attitudes prescribed by religion that constituted the Pax Deorum. Pietas was closely connected to fides, good faith, the respect for obligations solemnly entered into that stood in such sharp contrast to the duplicity that seemed to characterize Rome's enemies, whether Carthaginian or Greek. Then there was respect for authority, disciplina, and its concomitant concord. And among the private virtues were frugality, foresight, and reason, together with chastity and steadfastness. In short, Romans took a very serious view of life, gravitas. They would have been shocked if an impertinent Greek had said that this view was not only self-delusion, but insofar as it was true, described a ruthless, self-centered, and Philistine people. Did Virgil, a most retiring and literary person, believe this picture of the Romans?
Very interesting. That strikes me as I was rereading Book 1. I noticed a number of things where, of course, clearly Virgil is tagging the Odyssey in many places, but the difference between Aeneas and Odysseus and the way that he approaches things, thinks about things, reacts to things is so strikingly different that I think that the picture of Aeneas here completely resonates with the quote you just read.
Yes.
And he embodies these things.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And I take away from it really the setup of an important question. To what extent does Virgil, thoroughly Hellenized, thoroughly of one mind with Homer. To what extent does he like dealing with this material and forcing a very different kind of people and a very different kind of history into a Homeric mold?
So you think that Virgil you see some discomfort there? Or
Well, he's doing something that's not really true to his material in some ways.
Yeah.
He is recasting the history of Rome, this people characterized by the traits that Hainsworth described, gravitas and so forth, a people that's not very literary or artistic.
Yeah.
He's recasting their history as a Homeric kind of event, complete with in book 4 and book 2 things like references, very layered references to Greek tragedy. These kinds of things were appreciated by upper class Romans at the end of the Republic, but they weren't really Roman in any strict sense.
Right. No, that's a really interesting observation. I also noticed that in the many ways in which Aeneas is different than Odysseus. It takes me back to reading this in graduate school, teaching it, and often students' complaints about Aeneas is that he's, compared to Odysseus, he's boring. Right. He's kind of more removed. He's more aloof. He's not. He doesn't use that metis. He doesn't have that cleverness. But that gets in the quote that you just read, this idea that Romans had no taste for duplicity. And so, or that Greek idea of duplicity and looking at trickery as kind of a moral action or an immoral action.
Right.
The fact that Aeneas is not crafty like Odysseus is very Roman.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just one of the many things I noticed just in this first book where Aeneas seems to he's following the path of Odysseus in many ways, but he's a very different kind of player in this game.
Right. And the quote also mentioned the notorious deception and practice of deception of Rome's two main opponents, the Carthaginians and the Greeks. And so this theme of punica fides, right, a kind of Carthaginian or Punic faith or trustworthiness is always said ironically.
Right.
You can't trust the Carthaginians. They have that notorious punica fides, right?
Yeah.
They're just totally unreliable. And this is really the theme of the first 3 to 4 books. It occupies all of his interaction with Dido. And we're going to be introduced to Dido here at the end of book 1.
Right. Punica fides, acknowledging all of that, I think it makes it even more striking how sympathetic Virgil makes the Carthaginians, or these early Carthaginians. They are not mustache twirling villains from the get go. They're actually they're victims kind of the fate that hangs over Aeneas, right?
That's correct, and of Juno's wrath. They are sympathetic, winsome individuals that you want to like.
Yeah, and that makes me wonder how that would have played to a general Roman audience, which in the first century BC certainly had kind of been brought up on the stories of Rome of the recent centuries of Carthage as the ultimate. Right, the ultimate villain, right? The wolf that's at the door, Hannibal. Carthago delenda est; it must be destroyed.
Right.
And so, how this kind of sympathetic portrayal of the origins of Carthage, Virgil's, I admire that risk. I think he's taking.
Yes.
There. Yeah.
Perhaps part of what explains it is the difference between the reaction of the common person, you might say, in Roman society, and then this very thin crust of the aristocratic elite who, again, were thoroughly Hellenized.
Right.
And one of the examples that comes to mind is Cicero has an explanation, or he has an account in one of his letters of when he visited the games, and he saw an elephant that was involved in the gladiatorial games, and the elephant was kind of pleading for its life at one point. It looked like. And he was so thoroughly disgusted by it, right? So he goes to the games with a big stack of letters and literature because he's there, to read and to indulge in the life of literature in pursuit of things that are really, really Greek and not especially Roman.
Yeah.
So the kinds of qualities that are set out by Hainsworth in this quote, yes, they characterize the Roman population as a whole, but I'm wondering if the audience for which Virgil wrote would really appreciate those kinds of things.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
was aimed at a very small slice of the population.
Right. I think that's one of those questions that both fascinates me and frustrates me. Is like who are these works of literature for? Right. We don't have the reactions of if and when the Aeneid was performed or read to a public audience, we don't know how they reacted. And so that question of who exactly is Virgil, who Livy, who Ovid, who Apuleius, who name your guy,
right.
Who are they writing for, is in some ways an unanswerable question, or you can only go so far with it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually have this quote from Cicero about the elephant that we could throw in here if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, let's do it.
He says, there remain the 2 wild beast hunts lasting 5 days. Magnificent, nobody denies it. And yet, what pleasure can it be to a man of refinement when either a weak man is torn by an extremely powerful animal or a splendid animal is transfixed by a hunting spear? Things which, after all, if worth seeing, you have often seen before, nor did I, who was present at the games, see anything the least new. The last day was that of the elephants, on which there was a great deal of astonishment on the part of the vulgar crowd, but no pleasure whatever. Nay, there was even a certain feeling of compassion aroused by it, and a kind of belief created that that animal has something in common with mankind.
Yeah. No, that's powerful stuff. I like imagining Cicero sitting in the stands with his scrolls, right?
his iPad or whatever it is, and,
right?
Trying to study philosophy in Plato and secure his legacy as a great thinker,
right?
And meanwhile, all the people around him are just going crazy for the killing of elephants.
Yeah.
So I don't want to make too much of it because Cicero also champions the same kind of gravitas and fides and so forth that Hainsworth talked about. But maybe part of it is explicable by the fact that the Roman population was somewhat diverse in its tastes. Not everyone had that layer of Hellenism, laid on top.
Of course, right. And I think that's always worth considering when we pick up a text like this. Virgil was not writing this, certainly not for us, right? But to kind of to funnel that down, who was he writing for? I think that it's very easy to kind of fall into that trap that, I hear it in my students' voices. Well, the Greeks believed, fill in the blank. The Romans did, and without considering just the massive, diversity of peoples and beliefs.
Right.
It's always worth taking kind of that step back and considering.
Yes.
Yeah.
So should we go on to the point now where Venus makes her first appearance?
Yeah. Let's do a quick recap. So,
okay.
In the last full-length episode, we talked about how Aeneas and his fleet was kind of blown off course by the winds released by Aeolus.
That's correct, because of the bribe of Juno.
The bribe of Juno, and they wind up on Libyan, Carthaginian shores.
Correct.
Aeneas is convinced that the better part of his fleet is gone.
Correct.
He's lost a lot of his crewmates and friends. They've been wandering for years.
And this was the intervention of Neptune.
Yes.
Right? Neptune intervened to calm the storm and to put everything back in its proper order because Aeolus had exceeded his bounds.
Yes, exactly, which is more or less the opposite of what we see in the Odyssey, right?
Correct.
Yep, and one of those many reversals that we were talking about last time. And so now Aeneas and some of his crewmates, the refugees from Troy, find themselves in a strange land, not really knowing where they are and what they should do.
So as we pick up here then, Aeneas is having a sleepless night.
He is.
Shall we look at a little bit of the Latin and then get the Lombardo translation?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is from line 305 of Book 1. At pius Aeneas per noctem plurima volvens, ut primum lux alma detest exirre locusque, explorare novos quas venta caeserit oras, qui teneant nam... See, I made a mistake there. That's called an elision. Qui teneant nin culta videt homines neferainae.
Very nice. Yeah, I was looking at that line myself, and I completely missed that elision.
Well, I seldom do it. It's very embarrassing to make a mistake in front of all these people. But the word nam, of course, ends with the M, and the following word begins with a vowel. So we run them together.
Nin culta.
That's right.
Right. So Lombardo translates this as, Aeneas, meanwhile, aware of his duty, was up thinking the whole night through. When dawn kissed his face with light, he resolved to set forth and explore the strange coastline, to see which way the wind had blown him, and to see who lived there, man or beast.
Ah, nice.
It's nice.
Yeah, a couple of comments on that translation, if I may.
Yep.
How did he take, again, Aeneas aware of his duty? Was that the...
Aware of his duty.
Yeah,
right.
So that's his translation of pious.
Right. We were talking about that last time, about how the lazy translation of that word pious doesn't get at the Romanness of it.
So I think this is a good approximation. And then in line 306, when dawn kissed his face, was that the...
Yes.
Yeah, so that's how he is rendering alma, because it's ut primum lux alma detest. So as soon as the lux alma, the gentle, the welcoming, the fostering light.
Yes.
The fostering dawn was given. When dawn kissed his face. I like that.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. I think that I don't want to dump on Homer. Far be it from me to dump on Homer, but
that would be inappropriate.
That would be inappropriate. But I think when it comes to kind of these kind of subtle and soft descriptions of nature, I think Virgil has it over Homer.
Yeah.
I just something about it. I like it. I like it better. It hits me in a warmer kind of place than does the Iliad and the Odyssey. But
it's hard to beat Rhododactylos Eos.
It is true.
The rosy-fingered dawn.
Rosy-fingered dawn.
That's just so brilliant.
And the wine dark sea.
Yeah,
I love that
Merope.
kind of stuff. But there's, I think Virgil kind of he in some ways he takes it to another level.
Would you like to hear the Krisak couplet here?
Yeah, please.
So these are the same lines. Yet good Aeneas, worried by his thoughts all night, decides to rise the moment that he sees the light. And scout these places, strands to which the winds have blown them. What fauna hunt these unplowed lands? What people own them?
What do you think?
Well, a couple comments.
Okay.
First of all, it's very hard to rhyme poetry like this.
Yes.
And maintain any kind of meaning.
Right.
I like Plurima Walwain's worried by his thoughts all night. I think Krisak got that very nice. Good as a translation of pious, as opposed to what did Lombardo say? Intent on his duty. What was it?
Aware of his duty.
Aware of his duty. I think good is a little weak.
Yeah.
As a translation of pious. Decides to rise the moment that he sees the light. This is the ut primum lux alma detest.
Yeah.
And it's accurate. But just in this little sample, I'd have to give the palm to Lombardo.
Yeah. Although now that I'm thinking like that, good I think is it's a bit it's a bit thin.
But if you have to translate it 40 times in the epic,
right, exactly.
It's a challenge.
True. And so Lombardo's aware of his duty. He seems to connect this idea that Aeneas's obligation to his duty, that's what's keeping him up.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And so I don't know if the Latin necessarily suggests that.
It allows it. I'm not sure it suggests it.
Right. And another thing that what Lombardo translate was up thinking the whole night through. That's per noctem plurima Walwains.
Right.
I like the idea of Walwains. Tossing and turning. Right?
Correct.
And so I think if you miss that kind of that physicality of that. There are similar descriptions of Odysseus, like tossing like a sausage in a frying pan.
Right. That's a great one.
But was up thinking through the whole night through. I think kind of robs it of kind of its physicality. He's Walwains. He's rolling about. Right?
Yes. That's very good.
But it's easy to kind of pick nits like this and and fun too.
But we're academics. That's what we do.
That's right,
That's
exactly.
our bread and butter.
All right. So have we I think we've taken these two translators to task enough.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Let's move on then.
Okay. So he's tossing and turning, and he decides to kind of walk forth and explore this place. And this is one of these places where I thought, here's not a major difference between Odysseus and Aeneas, but I think a significant one. So if you remember back, listeners, and if you don't, go back to listen to our Odyssey episodes, when Odysseus arrives at strange islands, when he goes to the Cyclops Island or goes to the Lastrygonians, or even Circe's house, Odysseus usually does not go marching in himself. He sends off a couple of flunkies to kind of to test the waters and maybe take the bullets.
That's right.
That he
the
must
red shirt
avoid.
guys.
Exactly.
From Star Trek.
Exactly right. But Aeneas does not do that. He goes with Achates, his kind of his right-hand man, and he goes himself, which I thought, I don't know if I'm making too much of that, but is that Aeneas being kind of the brave Roman? The general, this idea that a general should do everything that the soldiers would do,
right.
Sleep on the ground and go through their own sufferings and not kind of
go over the wall first.
Whereas Odysseus, being crafty and clever, says, no, I have people to do that for me.
Well, I think you've definitely put your point on the key difference between the two heroes. The one is bent on self-preservation, that's Odysseus, and the other is driven by this crushing sense of duty. He has to succeed in founding a nation, founding a race. It's a very different epic journey. Odysseus is simply trying to get home to a place that already exists.
So, are you sympathetic to Odysseus in that kind of that wanting just to survive?
No, because I'm a Christian, and the concept of self-sacrifice is essential. I seek to make it essential to my identity because it's the It's the character of my God, who is self-sacrificial, our God, yours and mine. And so Aeneas is more self-sacrificing,
right?
And Odysseus is just more self-preserving.
Yes.
But in terms of enjoying literature, right? I don't necessarily read literature to be taught the principles of self-sacrifice.
Right.
So enjoying literature, Odysseus is a more entertaining character,
right? But
a less compelling model for my own behavior.
Yeah, nicely put. I think you put the finger on them. But I think that I put your finger on ways that we can both kind of enjoy and admire these two characters in different kinds of ways.
Absolutely.
Yep. So he goes out and he explores a little bit, and doesn't take too long, just a few lines, and then his mother shows up. Venus. So should we read a little bit of this?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, just in translation, or do you want to?
It's up to you.
Let's do some translation here. I'll give Lombardo's take on this. So in the Lombardo translation, this is at line 385. And there, in the middle of the forest, was his mother coming toward him. She looked and dressed like a young woman, and bore a huntress's weapons. She could have been a Spartan girl, or Harpalyce of Thrace, who outruns horses and the Hebrus' rapids. With a supple bow was slung over her shoulders in the style of a huntress, and she had let her hair fly loose in the wind. Her flowing robe was cinched up in a knot, offering a glimpse of her knees.
Oh.
Why do you think, and I'm not fishing for any particular kind of answer, why do you think that Virgil has Venus show up in a Diana-like guise? I mean, Aeneas even mistakes her for the Phoebe Soror. Are you the sister of Phoebus?
Right.
Why do you think he presents Venus in that kind of way?
So is the question why that way, or why in disguise at all?
Well, and I think I get the disguise part. I mean, I think he's tagging Homer, Athena as mentor and the like. Mm-hmm. But why choose this very specific, un-Venusian guise of Diana? I think it's very deliberate. He wouldn't have Aeneas mistake her for Diana if he didn't mean that connection.
Right.
Do you see any kind of layer there?
Well, I'm wondering if what we're seeing here is a little bit of a recharacterization of Venus. Prior to Virgil and his depiction of her, she's not really presented as a goddess who drives the action.
Right. So if you think about in the Iliad, she's kind of complaining to Paris.
Yes.
She runs up to Zeus when she's Daddy Zeus when she's wounded.
Correct.
She's very passive. But yeah, please go on.
But for the most part, there isn't really a lot that she does that is meaningful for the plot.
Yeah.
This is quite different. Here she has to negotiate with Juno. She has to, again, plead with her father. She's really going to drive Aeneas forward through most of the epic. And so presenting her in a traditional kind of a wallflower sort of portrayal is not going to really serve the needs of the story so well.
Yeah.
But dressing her up here as a woman of action who is resembling Artemis, who's always looking out for Artemis and doing amazing, physically amazing things, maybe that's more plausible.
Yeah, no, I like that. It also struck me that you have this really striking dichotomy between Venus, who is traditionally a kind of goddess of love, has always struck me as way too soft. She's a goddess of lust, right? Mm-hmm. And here in disguise as a goddess of Diana, Artemis, who is fiercely virginal.
That's right.
And so it struck me that in some ways maybe Virgil is setting up a kind of choice for Aeneas, right? He's going to meet Dido, and he's going to fall for her, and she's going to fall for him.
That's right.
Not without machinations by Venus and Amor, but they fall for each other. And so the kind of questions of which way is Aeneas going to go? Which way is Dido going to go? Are they going to fall into love/lust, or are they going to choose the path of action and duty, and chastity to some degree? Yeah.
Duty to their respective nations that they represent.
Exactly right. Yeah. So they have this dialogue between them. Aeneas wants to find out who she is and where they are. Tell me something about the land. And Venus goes on to tell him kind of the backstory of Dido.
That's right.
You want to kind of summarize that a little bit? Or?
Sure. Well, I'd like to read a little bit of the Cresac.
Please do.
Just to get a little bit of variety. Before Aeneas speaks, she, that of course is Venus, hails him. Young men say, if you have seen my sister wandering this way, a quiver round her and a mottled lynx hide, or full cry in hot pursuit to spear some foaming boar. Thus Venus, then the son of Venus, spoke this word. This, of course, is Aeneas. Your sister's lady, I have neither seen nor heard, but how should I address you? Yours is not a human face, your voice not human, goddess more than woman. You must be Phoebus' sister. Are you of the line of nymphs? Whoever, lift our burden, be benign. What coast have we been cast upon? Tell us what sky we wander under, errant, ignorant, the high waves and the winds have blown us to this unknown land. We'll feed your altar victims from a grateful hand.
I'm getting into the.
Are you liking it?
I'm kind of liking the. I mean, I'm usually kind of against that because it always sounds.
Okay.
It's always like pounding a square peg into a round hole.
Right.
But I like that. I like
So you're not a fan of Alexander Pope or maybe some of the Dryden?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. But I mean, I kind of like the rhythm to it. I could hear the beat. I could hear the music behind it. Mm-hmm. So. Aeneas doesn't recognize his mother as his mother, but I mean, I get the sense from certainly the backstory, he never really knew his mother all that well.
No.
Right? I mean, it was...
But he's angry about this later, in this same episode. He complains, why do you always have to appear to me in disguises? Why can't we just speak face to face and friend to friend?
Yeah, mom's playing games.
Exactly. Right. Very infuriating to him.
Yeah, and I feel for him.
I do too.
That is maddening. But he does recognize that this is no ordinary mortal, right? He recognizes there's something divine about her, right? And that's why he asks these questions. Are you a nymph? Are you
right.
Diana? Right.
And how do you recognize a deity in the Homeric Virgilian world? Again, they're very tall, about 9 feet tall. They have an ambrosial smell. There's something rosy about the back of their neck.
That becomes the giveaway when she turns and leaves, and that's when he says, "Oh, that's my mom."
Right. And the fourth thing is that they don't really walk; they kind of glide over the surface of the earth.
Right. I'm trying to think. How would you? I don't think the Aeneid has ever been. There's never been a miniseries or a movie.
I don't think so. Any kind of representation.
And how would you do a scene like that without looking just completely stupid?
I don't know. I don't know. There is one little nod to the Aeneid at the end of the movie Troy. Do you remember we did an episode on Troy?
We do. I don't remember this allusion, though.
More Bods Than Gods was the title that we came up with.
Way back when, yeah.
Way back when. Turned out to be kind of a dud.
Yeah. You're annoyed like Aeneas is with his mother.
I am a little bit because I thought, you've been, let's be honest here, Jeff. You've been driving us all along to let's make this pop culture relevant, right? Because that's what you know so much about compared to me.
Okay, yeah.
And this is our dynamic, right? We go back and forth on this. Yep. So I thought this was going to be a big hit, but no, it's kind of a flop.
So I feel like you're kind of annoyed with me.
Mostly.
For wanting to pushing it in that direction.
Well, I wouldn't have been annoyed if it had succeeded.
I see.
If everybody had rushed to it and said, "Oh, those guys talking about that shampoo commercial with Brad Pitt.
Oh man,
that was great.
That was great. Let's do it again."
But at the very end, I believe Achilles, Brad, hands a sword to a young man, Aeneas, and says, "Here, keep this safe. Go found a city or something like that."
That's right. It's a terrible scene.
It's bad in part because Achilles and Aeneas, although not equals on the battlefield, they're roughly the same age. Yeah. Whereas in this portrayal, he's 12 or something. Right. It's way off.
It's way off. And what's the percentage of the audience that would have gotten that illusion?
And appreciated it. Right. I don't know. Very low.
Right. So, all right. So the rest of the encounter between Aeneas and his mother is made up of kind of two parts. The first part is Venus gives the background. Who is Dido? Where does she come from? What is she fleeing? And then then Aeneas gets his chance to kind of tell his story about kind of where they come from. So let's talk a little bit about this backstory of Dido, which I think is so fascinating. So they are Tyrians, right? They are from Phoenicia. That's correct. They are not native-born Carthaginians. They are starting something completely new.
Correct.
So right away we have Dido is, I think, Virgil signaling this woman has a lot in common with Aeneas, right? They've both lost in some ways everything. And they're going off and they're going to start something new, and they both have kind of deities on their side. In some ways, couldn't this be kind of a match made on Olympus, right?
That's right.
They're perfect for each other.
Right.
And so they both have these tragic backgrounds. Venus tells Aeneas that Dido was of royalty back in Tyre, in Phoenicia.
So that region, just for our audience, that region of Tyre, Phoenicia, this is what is today Palestine. So it's south of Lebanon. Yes. It's right in the Middle East there, and that entire region was colonized by Phoenicians, who then also colonized Cyprus. So now we're talking about the history, and then they colonized a lot of North Africa past the Greek settlements in the region of Carthage. And they sailed successfully through the Straits of Gibraltar, past the Pillars of Hercules, and founded the city of Cadiz, Gades, in Spain, around on the western coast. There are even stories that they circumnavigated Africa, that they went all the way around Africa. And some people believe, although no reputable scholars that I'm aware of, that the Phoenicians also made it to North America and set up a bunch of settlements here on this continent, which I don't think anybody reputable believes that.
Right.
But we'll probably get some hate mail from those who are true believers. There's some supposed potential inscription in Kentucky that has been suggested to be linked to the Phoenicians or the Carthaginians. Yeah, so then there are the two cities of Tyre and Sidon. And this is where Dido comes from.
Yes.
And why does she have to leave home?
Well, Venus tells us that she was married previous to Zacchaeus, and it was a very good match. But he becomes a rival with her brother Pygmalion.
Okay.
And ultimately, Pygmalion kills her husband and tries to cover it up.
How does Dido find out about the death of her husband?
Zacchaeus appears to her in a vision, kind of from beyond the grave. Kind of tells her what went down, and I love this detail. It's her now dead husband had a lot of foresight because he had hidden away a lot of this gold and silver, right? Which apparently Pygmalion was after, and he tells Dido in this dream, says, "No, your brother killed me. Here's where you can find all this treasure. Pack it up and get out of here." And she listens and goes.
That's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal.
Have you ever had anyone reveal information to you in a dream?
Never. My dreams are usually just so nonsensical and absurd that they seem to be completely devoid of any meaning at all. Have you had messages in a dream?
No, I've had what in my half waking hours seem like messages.
Yeah.
And they seem really meaningful, but then when I awake, I realize this is something absurd.
Yeah. Or if I have had that feeling where you kind of wake up and there's something profound has happened in my mind, and then it disappears.
You can't remember it.
You can't get it.
That's very frustrating.
It is. It's very liminal as well. But we're not going to go down that path. I promise. Right. All right. So Dido is she's heartbroken.
Yes.
She's lost everything. She's lost her home. I mean, the one kind of bright light is that she has not been left with nothing. She has this tremendous amount of treasure that she can take with her, and she heads for the north coast of Africa and lands at what will one day be Carthage. And so, of course, Aeneas, he lost in the fires of Troy as Troy was being sacked. He lost his own wife, Creusa, and escapes with his father and his son and the household gods. And so they have this similar kind of tragic, romantic background that they are running from and trying to start something new.
And what about that's a wonderful summary, thank you. What about the story of how they were able to get a toehold there in North Africa? The story of the bursa and the ox hide?
Oh yeah, can you explain? That on the face of it strikes. I think it would strike kind of most readers is very odd. How does that go?
Well, there seems to be some historical basis for this, actually.
Really?
Yes.
Are the Tyrians going to Kentucky again here?
No, but there was a person named Alyssa or Dido, and the Carthaginians did, in fact, in the 9th century, that's the 800s, or the 8th century BC, journey west from Palestine, from Phoenicia, and they did, in fact, colonize Carthage and made some efforts to colonize parts of southern Sicily. So the story to which Virgil alludes, here I'm reading the Cresac translation, goes like this. Of Carthage you see rising, and high walls as well. This land was bought outright, so Bursa is its name. The ground a bull's hide compassed, all that they could claim. So the story is that when they arrived, they said, we would like to purchase some land. Now the indigenous persons didn't want to give up their property, even though it was not being stolen. They were going to purchase it with this supply of gold and silver that Dido had brought from Zacchaeus, which he had squirreled away. So what they said was, well, you can have as much land as you can surround with one ox hide.
Okay.
But they were clever, right? The Carthaginians were shrewd. They were clever. So what did they do? They took this hide and they cut it up into tiny, tiny little strips. and then they stretched this ox hide out to a great size, and of course it covered then, I don't know how many hundreds of acres or square miles, because they cut it down into tiny little bits.
Yes, that's some metis there. That's some
right.
cleverness.
That's the kind of trickiness that the Carthaginians are known for. That's their punica fides.
There you go. I find it interesting that in the text that Venus doesn't really explain that. I mean, it's clearly a legend, a story that the Romans, that Virgil's audience would have been familiar with, would need it. But Aeneas doesn't speak up. Like, what's that with the ox hide? What are you talking about?
Right.
He just kind of he lets that just kind of slide past.
That's right. He's not very interested in that.
Right. There's a line in there in the Latin, which it just reminded me of grad school, where Lombardo translates this. So Venus goes through all of these things that have happened, and the rising of the new walls at Carthage, and Lombardo translates this as a woman did this. I believe the Latin is dux femina facti.
That's correct.
A woman was the leader of the deed.
That's right.
Right. And
why does this remind you of grad school?
There was a cohort of young female undergraduates who were kind of shaking their feminist fists. And were very drawn to Dido, and they had these T-shirts made up with some kind of like a vase painting, and underneath they put Dux Femina Facti.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, this is line 364.
Yeah, and it is striking, that we have Dido, a woman, in charge of this expedition, right? Not to go all politically correct or feminist on it, but it's notable. It's notable in the same way that, like, I think Antigone is notable.
Yes.
And I here again, we don't see a lot of this kind of thing in the Iliad or the Odyssey, and so here again, I think Aeneas is clearly, as you were saying, he's building upon a known kind of quasi history. But it's also kind of striking that the Dido's leadership is unquestioned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, when we get to book 4 and we see about Dido's terrible fate,
well, it all falls apart.
A lot of the supposed feminist tendencies of Dido are a little bit undone.
Right. We could, and you could also blame that on Venus and Amor and the Furies as well. But point taken.
Speaking of the Furies, it's time for the ads.
Of course. This episode of Ad Nauseam brought to you by Hackett Publishing. Hackett Publishing for the last 50 years, exactly 50 years.
That's correct. This is their anniversary.
Their anniversary year, with offices in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Cambridge, Massachusetts. They've been putting out affordable, readable, digestible, just great volumes from the classics, translations of the classics, and from all of their corners of academia for all these years. Right now, I have in front of me, I'm looking at Stanley Lombardo's translation of the Aeneid. And I've talked a lot in these ads over the last couple of years about how I love the covers.
Right.
And so here, the kind of the back photo is a detail from the Vietnam War Memorial in D.C. with, of course, I'm sure many of you are aware, has just all the names of the dead and inscribed onto that wall. And after the break, we'll be talking a little bit about this scene where Aeneas already sees set in stone scenes from the Trojan War, and he sees himself and he sees his lost comrades there. Just what a tremendous, wonderful, and subtle corollary to that.
Absolutely,
and that sums up kind of what I love about Hackett. They're so careful and so subtle and so interesting the way they put these things together.
It's really brilliant.
It's really brilliant. So, Dave, what do you like about Hackett?
I'm looking at the website now, and I see just a really broad selection of different kinds of works that they have on offer here. We have the Western literary tradition, Islamic legal theory, Plato's laws, Hidden Berlin, about some of the sites of the city of Berlin, 7 myths of military history, a samurai, a source book, the essential Greek historians, classics in the Western philosophy of art, and Common Ground, a new set of essays on second language acquisition. So you can see that this is a broad array of really interesting material that Hackett is providing to its readership.
Right. So listener, go to hackettpublishing.com. That's HACKETT publishing.com, and just have a look around.
That's right.
And if you feel so inclined, click on some texts that you like, put them in your little grocery satchel. And what's our coupon code? If they put in?
It's AN2022, the current year. So Ad Nauseam 2022.
Yes.
And that's going to get you ready for this?
Yes.
20% off any order and free shipping. That's a very, very generous. Yes, it's incredible.
We love this company. They've been with us from the beginning. Please check them out.
This episode of Ad Nauseam is also brought to you by Pop City Popcorn, located in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Gourmet popcorn. Jeff, tell us what you like about Pop City.
Well, first I'm going to tell you, not what I like about Pop City, but what I generally don't like about salty snacks.
Okay, let's hear it.
And my family can attest to this, is that I'm generally not a huge fan of like the flavored popcorn, like if it's savory, like like the cheese or whatever. And I realized why I don't like it. It's because it tastes so fake.
I see. The artificiality.
The artificiality. And so when Pop City sent us the sampler,
right,
and I tasted their Parmesan cheese,
right,
I said, oh, this is how it's supposed to be.
You were hooked.
I was hooked because it was the real deal. It didn't taste phony. It didn't taste fake. It was tremendous.
Yeah, you're Dr. Authenticity, as I like to say.
Yes. Yeah, you call me that all the time.
I do, yes. In fact, I think this is the first occasion.
But like in the sweet variety,
right?
Their two-way drizzle was great. Their variations on the caramel corn and the chocolate, it was fantastic.
Yeah, the buffalo mix, where they use a kind of a barbecue seasoning that's imitating the chicken wings of a famous restaurant that we probably can't name.
That's right.
And I got a little bit of pushback from our friends at Pop City.
You did? What was the problem?
Well, because in the very first ad, the debut, the debut, if you will, I accidentally said that Central Michigan was located in Kalamazoo.
Oh.
And you corrected me immediately. It's an honest mistake.
Yeah.
It's Western Michigan, the Broncos.
The Broncos, exactly.
Because, of course, Broncos roam the plains of South Central Michigan.
It's sometimes you're stuck on the freeway because of these stampedes
Broncos on the way to Kalamazoo. And they said, look, our friends at Pop City, they said, look, you can't mention Central Michigan and Kalamazoo
in the same breath.
Yeah,
no.
The Bronco fans are going to go crazy.
I didn't know they were so prideful of their locality.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But getting back to popcorn.
Yes. Yeah.
You said that Mrs. Winkle loves the dill pickle flavor.
The dill pickle was, again, surprising. Like,
right.
It's one of those that I would see that and say, I'm not going to go there. But you taste it, and it tastes real.
It's so real.
It is so real.
The bacon cheddar, fantastic.
Yep.
So, again, you're living the AN life, we like to say. Right?
Yes.
The ad nauseum. You're drinking fine coffee, you're ordering your books from Hackett, you're reading your books, and you got a bowl of popcorn there.
Right there.
Just a simple pleasure, one of life's simple pleasures.
What more do you need?
Yes, and how can one of our audience members, how can they score themselves some great popcorn, Jeff?
Well, they need to go to the Pop City website, which is...
It's popcitypopcorn.com.
Right. So listeners, go check it out. It's a really attractive website, and you can see the vast array of flavors and styles they have on offer.
That's right.
Find the ones you like. Then as far as the coupon code, it is ANPOP20.
That's correct.
And
I'm looking right here. Strawberry cheesecake.
Oh, goodness.
Is a great gift for mom and our first sign of spring. I'm gonna check out the movie night basket at one point.
Well, that sounds about right.
Yeah, because don't you like to watch movies and then all the work's done for you and the popcorn's already there?
It's already there.
No schlepping all the way to the kitchen and turning on the microwave and all the difficult buttons and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. Who needs that hassle?
That's right.
That's hassle. So if they put in that code, what do they get, Dave?
They're going to get 20% off their first order.
Fantastic. Check it out, please. And this episode of Ad Nauseam also brought to you by Ratio Coffee. Mark Helwig and his team of geniuses out there. Are they still out there in Portland?
Portland, you betcha.
Portland. They've done it. They've solved all your brew-based problems.
That's right.
They have these wonderful, attractive works of art types of machines that brew every morning for you, for me, the perfect cup of coffee.
That's correct. I'm drinking some coffee right now as we speak.
You are?
Well, I mean, it's right here in my hand.
Oh, that's what's in that thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
That I brewed this morning in my Ratio 8. And it wasn't like going to the microwave and trying to make your own popcorn. This machine has one button.
Yeah.
Could it be any simpler, any more foolproof?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Have you ever used one of those? It's like the one cup thing. I was in a hotel with my family recently.
It's Guric.
Yeah.
I think it's Guric, something like that.
Guric, something like that.
That's right.
So, and it brews this little tiny cup.
Correct.
I was in a hotel with my family recently. That was the only thing on offer. It's just,
It's just tepid and thin, a little bit gruely.
Yeah.
I kept looking for a stone in the bottom or maybe some pieces of barley. I couldn't tell, is this soup or is it coffee?
Exactly right. And you reach for just kind of your one tiny cup. You miss the weight of that hulking carafe.
It's really disappointing.
It's disappointing.
And they got the Kindle brick right underneath it, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, but not the ratio 6 or the ratio 8. One touch simplicity, and then the fantastic bloom stage, which is where the magic happens.
That's the mysterious bloom stage where all of the nasty carbon dioxide is off-gassed into the netherworld, and it leaves all the roasty goodness behind for you.
Sweet, delicious coffee goes right down into your carafe, and it's kept warm there for hours.
Yes, so I have the ratio 6. Dave has the ratio 8, both fine machines.
Yours is in stainless steel.
Stainless steel.
Yeah, and there's not going to be any blemishes or marks or detractions from the good looks of that machine.
No, it looks like RoboCop.
Yes, it just came out of the RoboCop 1 or RoboCop 2.
Oh, definitely the first one. Yeah,
Right.
The second one was.
Now, you going to star in the third one?
If offered, I'd take it.
When you finish working on Teen Wolf.
That's right. Exactly right. And you've got the 8 with its oyster accents. I believe?
Well, no. The oyster is the color.
Oh, okay.
So it matches my countertop and my cabinets very nicely, and then it has walnut accents.
Walnut accents. That's right.
But I was shopping through the ratio catalog a little bit, and I was thinking, I really like some of these other machines, the beauty and the combination of beautiful elements. But the problem is, I'm going to be with this ratio for the next 40 years because it's never going to break.
Exactly. It's an heirloom.
Exactly. I'm going to have to buy a second house in order to get a second ratio.
Exactly right.
This one is just going to keep working brilliantly.
Right. Exactly. Those are problems worth having. I
Absolutely.
think. Right. So if you listen, if you go to ratiocoffee.com, RATIO coffee.com, order up either the 6 or the 8 or both if you want to. Type in the coupon code. I believe it is ANCO5J.
That's correct. The J in honor of Jeff. ANCO5J.
And that will get you 15% off.
That's correct. Yep. Check it out. All right, Jeff, so as we get back into it, before we get to Aeneas' arrival in Carthage, should we look at the complaint which he levels against his mother, Venus?
Yeah, this is interesting. Give us a little bit of the Latin there, would you?
Yes, so he says, Quid natum totiens crudelis, tu quoque falsis, ludis imaginibus cur dextra jungere dextram, non datur aqueras audi ret redere voces?
Which Lombardo translates as, You! Do you have to cheat your son with empty appearances? Why can't we at least embrace and talk to each other in our own true voices?
Yeah.
I find the relationship between Venus and Aeneas interesting. Again, a tremendous departure from the Odyssey. Athena is Odysseus' patron goddess in many ways, but Athena, of course, is not Odysseus' mother. So we have this dynamic here that Aeneas is not only has he lost his wife, he's lost his city, he's lost his heritage. He's kind of a latchkey kid.
That's right.
He doesn't even have his mother is alive. She's a goddess, but he has very little contact with her. And I find this complaint, this simple longing of a son wanting to know his mom very, very moving.
It's very compelling.
Yeah.
It does generate a little bit of sympathy and compassion toward a character that can at times seem fairly bland.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well said. But of course, Venus does not respond.
Doesn't even answer.
And we learn in the next line, she actually packs up and goes back off east to her, and she says she's happy to be back in her temple with her ambrosia and her attendants.
That's right. Very hard.
Very hard, and Aeneas is left alone. Right. So now he approaches. So Venus, as she did to him in the Iliad, she wraps him in a mist.
That's right.
And his friends that are with him.
Wraps Aeneas in the mist.
In the mist, yes. Mm-hmm. And so they can approach Carthage incognito and kind of see things. And
you ever been wrapped in a mist?
I've driven in fog. It's not very enjoyable.
You've been to Scotland, haven't you?
I have been to Scotland, and I actually was. The time I was there, it was actually very sunny.
I've never been in Scotland when it's sunny.
I don't think it is sunny there often. I was actually hoping for some, mist coming off the moors, and such like that. I wanted kind of that haunted Scotland. Bodotria, right? The Firth of Forth. The Firth of Forth. Yeah.
All I got was mist.
Really?
Was wrapped in mist the whole time.
I take it by your tone, you didn't enjoy that.
Didn't enjoy it. So I get out of bed in the morning in my authentic Scottish hotel. I think it was the Holiday Inn. Take the elevator down to the main level. Get the Scottish breakfast with the haggis and the blood sausage.
Yeah,
and then walk out because they actually do serve that at the Holiday Inn. And then walk out into the street, and there was the mist waiting for me. Had been sitting in the lobby and just enveloped me, and on we went.
Said, "Oh, there you are. Let's go."
Right, exactly. Is it 8:30 already? Time to see the city. at least the first 5 feet of it ahead of your face.
Right. So it wasn't a magical divine experience like Aeneas is having here at all.
No, it was troublesome.
That's right. Well, let's change. Let's move on.
Okay. So they head toward the city. This is line 418. Caripawe rewien teriaqua semita monstrat. Iamqua scende bant colemqui plurimus urbi imminet adver sasquad specta de super arces.
Yes, so Lombardo again. The two heroes, meanwhile, followed the path and ascended a hill high above the city. And looking down, Aeneas was amazed at the sheer size of the place. Once a few hovels, the city gates, the bustle of the paved streets, the Tyrians were hard at work building walls, fortifying the citadel, rolling boulders by hand, making out sites for houses with trenches.
Yes.
So they're standing up on a ridge.
It's a hustle and bustle.
It's hustle bustle. And it's not long after that Aeneas kind of goes to his go-to nature scene. He loves bees.
That's right. And so you mean Virgil goes to his...
Sorry. Yes,
right.
Virgil goes to his one of his favorite his nature metaphors, the bees. And so it's these busy bees, working at the hive.
This is like Richard Scarry's Busy Town, right?
Oh, yeah.
We need some kind of... sort of symphonic music, dun 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 dun.
Exactly right. Yeah, I loved those books as a kid. And did you read those too?
I like them. Yeah, There's no plot.
There's no plot, but it's just a dizzying array of characters.
Yeah, I have this real angry feeling toward plotless books. Honestly.
Really?
Like Goodnight Moon.
Oh yeah, that's brutal.
There's no plot there.
No, exactly. No, a lot of those clapboard books you read to your 2-year-old, 3-year-old children are right. Oh, it's awful.
I think oatmeal is featured prominently in that story.
There is oatmeal?
In Goodnight Moon or Mush.
Mush. It's the
like
Mush,
that.
right? Exactly.
Any book that has oatmeal as a main character is just really not going to be very exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. It's no secret why that was never made into a feature film.
But the one about the caterpillar.
Which one?
I think it's Eric Carle.
The hungry caterpillar. Yeah, who just kind of eats through stuff.
Exactly. That has a perceptible plot.
It does.
It has drama and conflict. I like that.
He's making his way through sausage and strawberries.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm for it. So here we have the same kind of scene that Aeneas and Achates, trusty Achates, they look down and they see all the hustle and bustle of Carthage.
Yes. And in a departure from Homer, Odysseus is trying to get back home to an established home. Here, Aeneas is hoping to establish a new home somewhere. And I love the emotions here that he's... I think it's in the line that followed the one you just read, but he's lamenting and he's saying, look at this. These people are way ahead of us.
Yes, right? They're almost finished.
Happy are those whose walls already rise, I believe.
Exactly.
Is the translation of that famous line. And it reminds me of this. When I read this last night, it made me think of that story about Julius Caesar going to Alexandria and seeing kind of a city, how a city is supposed to be, and thinking of his mind, Rome compared to this is a dump.
Right.
And he comes back home. He's murdered not long after, but he comes back home with these grand designs. Says, we've got to build Alexandria.
Exactly.
Right. So it's a similar kind of thing here, right? It also reminds me of that feeling that, I don't know if you remember this, on the college, when you were in college, where all your friends had finished their exams and they were taking off and you still had 4 more to go. Oh. And the campus is deserted. That's a horrible feeling.
That is a really disheartening.
Right. So I that's what I feel. Aeneas is like,
when your exam is scheduled for the very last slot.
The last slot and the last day, everybody's gone.
Right. People are packing up their vehicles and there's a general sense of summery joy.
Right. Lots of hooting and hollering.
That's right.
Yeah. You don't want to hear that. Right. So that's Aeneas. I think Aeneas is in that slot right now. Yeah. All right. I want to jump to one of my favorite scenes in book 1. It's when Aeneas and his comrades, wrapped in this mist, they're kind of free to roam around and look at things without being disturbed. And they come upon these murals, and they quickly realize that the scenes they're looking at are scenes from the Trojan War, and they start to recognize themselves and their lost companions.
Yes.
And I think here, this is Virgil, I think, again, one-upping Homer. So, the corollary here is the bard Demodocus amongst the Phaeacian court. So who starts singing these songs for entertainment, and Odysseus realizes he's singing the songs of Troy.
Right.
His fame has preceded him. And here, Aeneas is doing a similar kind of thing, but he puts it in visual form.
Right.
So Demodocus had the soundtrack, and here we get the movie.
That's right.
These visual images. And to me, in some ways, it's more powerful. I think it's easier in some ways to sing an abstract song about people, but to depict them in a physical form in a way that they even recognize themselves is extraordinary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So So that again, Aeneas kind of wandering for, I think we learned that he's been wandering for 7 years at the end of this book, it kind of realizing that he's famous.
Yes.
And not in the way that he perhaps would like to be.
He's famous as a participant in this awful, destructive war.
Right.
That ruined his city. And there's this fantastic line. It's 458. Atri das priamum quet saiwam bobus achillem. He starts to see all of these things depicted on these panels. He sees the sons of Atridas. He sees Priam, and he sees Achilles raging at them both.
Yes. And I thought it was one of my talk about Virgil's command of kind of visual impact. He talks about Troilus. Lombardo translates this. On another panel, Troilus, just a boy and no match for Achilles in combat, has lost his armor and is being dragged by his stampeding horses. Fallen backward from his empty chariot, he still holds the reins while his neck and hair trail in the dust, and the plain is scored by the tip of his spear.
Yeah.
I remember as an undergrad reading this for the first time, and that visual image of kind of his spear point dragging, tracing S's in the sand. I thought that was so kind of hair on the back of your neck kind of effective.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful line in the Latin as well. Per terret versa pulvisen scribitur hasta.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
It's fantastic.
And I think that's where another place where I think I prefer Virgil to Homer. I don't think Homer gets. I mean, there are some really over the top descriptions that Homer gives us, with the eyes falling out and rolling down the hill.
Right.
But there's something so kind of quietly tragic and human about this particular description, right?
It makes Virgil very, very appealing.
It does, right? And I also kind of like the way that he's painting the Greeks not as supervillains, but that's not absent here.
No.
Right? The fact that Troilus is this kid who gets killed by Achilles. There's nothing valiant about Achilles killing Troilus.
It's cruelty.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And so we get sympathy. We see this scene that apparently these Carthaginians have made, and the way that they have painted and done these murals, they're doing it in a way that's sympathetic to the Trojans.
Exactly. Yeah. So we had that great Troilus episode, but if we back up just a little bit to where he first sees it, he stops and he cries, right? This is 459. He stops and he cries and he says to Achilles, is there any place in the world, any region in all the world that's not just stuffed with our struggle, plena laboris? He says, look, there's Priam. And then here are probably the two most famous lines in Book 1, where he says, here there are rewards for valor, right? The sua praemia laudi.
Yes.
And then the sunt lacrimae reret mentem mortalia tangunt. So here there are tears for human events, rerum, and mortal things, mortalia, they affect the mind.
Yeah.
So to me, I've always used this as emblematic of humanism, right? The good kind of humanism, not secular humanism, which means the kind that's tied to a particular moment as though your generation is the only generation that ever mattered.
Yeah.
But the really good kind of humanism of Terence, right? I'm a human, homo sum. I think nothing human is foreign to me.
Right.
So when now Aeneas arrives in Carthage, how does he know that they're going to be well received? It's because here they cry over human suffering.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a profound insight that Virgil has.
It is, right. And if you think about just the backstory of Dido that we just heard, how easy it would have for them to have painted their own story. But in some ways, I think Dido is expressing her own suffering by depicting the suffering of the Trojans. Dido inherently recognizes that connection of human suffering from between her and these people that she's never met.
That's right, exactly. So if you meet someone who can weep over human misery, you know you're going to be okay because they're not going to treat you, they shouldn't at least, with a kind of calloused hardness.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have a funny little anecdote here, 464 and 465. Mm-hmm. So he spoke and he fed his soul, pascit animum, on the empty picture, pictura nani. The funny anecdote is I once assigned this portion for a class some 20 years ago. The line 465, multa gemains largo humectat flumina vultam. He wet his face, humectat vultum, with a large flow of tears.
Yes.
And my student translated this. I remember this young woman's name. I won't say it on air. Delightful young lady. She was struggling to get some of the vocab, and she said, in the river he met a large vulture. Good effort.
Yeah.
Good effort.
Good effort. And truth be told, that would be terrifying.
Yes, it would.
You're out for a swim,
right? And there's a large vulture, and she was trying to make do with. Okay, what is this Waltum? Well, maybe it looks like vulture. Its face, and Flumina is a river, and so my only question was. So 1 minute he's looking at the scenes and the next he's in a river with a large vulture.
Being attacked by a bird.
It's okay. Live to fight another day.
Yeah, all told, it's not a bad strategy. I mean, if you don't know where to go, choose what looks like a cognate, right?
Yeah, and make it coherent.
Yes.
You got to come up with a complete idea.
So I applaud.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, we're really up against the clock this morning, aren't we?
And we didn't get to the end of book 1 like we promised.
I know, but we make all kinds of, empty promises on this show, don't we?
Exactly, like these empty images that Virgil was just telling us about, right?
Feasting their souls on. But why rush, really?
Right. I'm not. You know what? I'm not going to apologize for taking it slow and trying to and get all the juicy goodness out of this book.
Exactly.
Yeah, it would be much worse if we were just rushing through it.
Yeah, there's no reason. If you want to rush through, you want to read the Spark Notes edition, go ahead. But we're going to take our time.
Were you just shaming? I thought were you shaming the audience again there?
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Do I do anything else?
But next week we'll pick up. We'll tag the end of book 1.
Correct.
And we're going to get into what I believe you said is your favorite book.
Absolutely.
Book 2,
The Fall of Troy. We have Sinon and the characters within the horse. We have so many incredible episodes in book 2 of Aeneas' encounter with Helen, and does he kill her or does he let her go?
Yeah,
it's just gripping.
It's great stuff. We get a kind of a version of the Fall of Troy that Homer never gives us.
No, it's the most extended and longest version in literature of the Fall of Troy.
Yep, but we got to get out of here.
We do.
So, Dave, who do we got to thank?
We want to thank me, first of all, because I have developed this fantastic program for learning Greek. You were just about to ask me about it.
The Moss Method.
Exactly. So the Moss Method, we're going to raise the price June 1.
How dare you?
Well, we have to respond to, the
inflationary pressures.
Exactly, inflationary pressures. We haven't raised the price in 4 years. It's only going up just a titch.
Okay.
From $2.99 to $3.25. So if you want to get in before the price goes up, you better go to the website, mossmethod.com, check it out, take you from
neophyte to erudite.
That's correct. And it will teach you a comprehensive, self-paced, expert, guided approach to the Greek language.
Do it. We also got to thank Mishka.
We have to thank our wonderful sound engineer, Mishka, puts this together so brilliantly.
Our musicians, Scott Van Zen and Ken Tamplin.
That's correct.
For the screaming licks that you hear throughout.
And the bumper music there for the ads.
Yeah.
Anyone else we need to thank? Should we thank the audience?
We thank for putting up with us once again. Yes, as always.
Episode number 84, and some people are still listening. We're so grateful. Thank you.
So grateful for that.
What if they want to contact us and help us with our lack of shout-outs?
All they got to do is write to either me at jeff@adnauseam.com. Don't forget the V, or to Dave over there at Dave@adnauseam. Again, don't forget the V. We want to hear from you.
Yes, we do.
We'd love to shout you out, give you a little bit of publicity.
Yeah.
If you want to plug something, plug it. Right?
Yeah, plug it. That's right. A little 13 minutes of fame, something like that.
If you're a New Zealander in the Barista Championships, let us know.
Yeah, we want to know. You are the interesting ones out there who are consuming this content. Check out our gurgles. Don't forget the V. We've got 2 of them, more coming up on a variety of interesting topics.
Indeed. So next week we're going to pick up where we left off, end of the Aeneid and into book 2. I can't wait.
That's right. And Jeff, you have our gustatory parting shot.
Yes, I'm going to apologize for the pronunciation of the author here.
So you are apologizing or you're not? Just a moment ago you were saying, I'm not apologizing for anything.
There's some things I'll apologize for, and then some things I won't. So this is something I will apologize for.
Okay.
Mangling a pronunciation.
All right.
This comes from a book called The Book of Wisdom by one Bangambiki Habyarimana.
All right.
Who in this book wrote, "A full fridge is like an empty one. What am I going to eat?"
That's a great question.
It is a great question.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.